Okay, I want to take a break from talking about becoming a master of your craft and just talk a little bit about culture, organizational culture, and really how we can use technical development to enforce the culture of our organizations. I was very lucky to be drafted by the Green Bay Packers, a franchise that had had decades of success before I got there. And they had, amongst other things, a locker room full of really high character guys with oversized ambitions. And they had a coaching staff that was just a room full of teachers, guys that loved to teach the details. And back then, Green Bay was coming off a back-to-back Super Bowls. They had a 3-time reigning MVP. They had a Hall of Fame Defensive Player of the Decade. But they also had this coach in Mike Holmgren who was a teacher first and a very, very demanding leader. And his staff was full of these young, ambitious future head coaches, including Andy Reid, the Super Bowl winning coach and most recent Super Bowl winning coach. And one thing was clear during my first year there with the Green Bay Packers, and that was that the buck stopped with Mike Holmgren. Mike and the general manager, Ron Wolf, they had really developed a Packers way of doing business. And Mike and his staff had developed that one voice, one message mentality. And so the systems we ran and the techniques that we used, well, they were implemented with consistent languaging. And so the standards and expectations and the demands for each player were transparently communicated by every single member of his staff each and every day. Mike had a lot going for him, I think, back then, and I'm sure he'd say that. They'd put together a really special group of players in Green Bay, but a special group of players will only realize their potential if they're given the opportunity to do so. And so in this manner, having a set of standards for practices, having a set of standards for meetings, well, those things that are clear and enforced at every turn allow the formation of habits and routines that will ultimately empower your employees to carry the culture in the building. And this could be only done in Green Bay if the Packer way was relayed through every subordinate coach and staff member in the building so that the message was always clear and uniform. One voice, one message mentality. This ensures that the culture of the organization will withstand changes in staff, changes in personnel, injuries, any setbacks that you can imagine during the regular season or the playoffs. And this is one reason that Coach Holmgren found success later in Seattle. He really understood that player ownership is critical to organizational culture, and ownership comes when you buy into the process. If we consider our output, the ability of our players to perform on game day, then giving them the tools to maximize their individual success, something that I like to call total athlete development, is critical to building a consistently performing team. From my perspective, from the perspective of a player, what does a player ultimately want out of their relationship with their organization? Really, they want two things. They want to be put in the best position to succeed, and they want to be given the tools to be successful. They want to be developed. So if you take this full circle, winning over the long term is a function of our ability to A, find the right people to perform on game day, and B, give those people the skills they need to execute at the highest level they're capable of. So the mission of the organization then has to be to procure and develop talent in order to find the most on-field success. And your culture then, your shared value system as it pertains to the people who are currently in your building, is one of total athlete development. The more you invest in developing your players, the more likely they are to commit to your cause. And acquiring technical skill is the foundational building block of becoming a master of your craft. And we could get into all of the direct and ancillary benefits of skill development, but at the ground floor, developing technique takes discipline, routine development, and habit formation. And so to teach and acquire technical skill, one must have a process based on dedicated and deliberate practice. And this all starts with a set of expectations that are communicated transparently across the building using a consistent language of learning. Now, organizationally, the Packer way fostered confidence in the process. It fostered discipline, and it fostered a competitive mindset. This is not the case with many sporting organizations. Many organizations don't win, and they're not going to win over the long term because they're not built to win. They don't have their culture right. They lack personal responsibility. Simply, they need less fingers and more thumbs. We spend endless hours pouring through what the opponent could be doing to us, but sometimes we shortchange our own player development process. Technique wins individual matchups. And we tend to talk about talent. I hear about talent all the time. We hear talent beats all. You think about the college football landscape. Usually the discussion's about the recruiting war that's going on for the national championship. I mean, it's not a coincidence that the same 4 teams keep battling for the trophy. And coaches in back rooms, well, they're going to often point to shortcomings of their athletes over the qualities of preparation that they really have control over. And I get it. I played ball at the Naval Academy. I mean, 100 out of 100 times if we faced Alabama, we would lose that game. Talent matters. But at the highest levels, the bandwidth in talent is pretty narrow. And in a matchup of 2 equally able competitors, technique is going to consistently outperform. And technical systems help players acquire skill, but they also build the routines and develop the habits that will help athletes become foundational learners, something that is absolutely crucial to total athlete development. Every individual is different, and so it's up to coaches and personnel staff to determine what blend of auditory, visual, communicative, and kinesthetic learning is best for their room. Unfortunately, if you use technique to develop your system, well, this allows for immediate feedback, and we have access to so many data points now. It's really a question of identifying what data makes the most sense for each individual or each group. And routine development is so important for athletes. You think about routines, they allow the individuals to stay present in the moment, not having to worry about the next event or wasting energy on what you should be doing. Well, that promotes complete focus on the current objective. Now, daily and weekly schedules, team schedules, are already part of the process. So implementing blocks of time dedicated to skill development, dedicated to mobility work, film time, recovery work, well, that's easy if we can find a starting point. And most organizations are doing some of this already. But how many of your players would you say are spending enough time working on their own skill set? You know, if the answer is not enough, then the reason is most likely that as an organization, you're not demonstrating the level of importance that really has. So when we think about culture, I want to reverse engineer what it is we're trying to accomplish. You know, competitive teams want to win. Their goal is to win championships. And in the highly competitive business of collegiate sports and professional football, winning means finding the right talent and making sure that that talent is performing at their optimal level. And by talent, I obviously mean the players playing on the field, but I also mean the coaching staff. So we want to develop our coaches so they can kind of become the best versions of themselves. Because winning takes care of marketing. It takes care of branding. It takes care of getting your social media numbers up. You know, people want to associate themselves with winners. This is the mission then. Develop the people in your building. Give them the opportunity to perform at their highest level. Provide them the tools and the structure to achieve their ambitions, because at that point, their ambitions will be in concert with your objectives. And never lose focus of what is possible when we commit to help others achieve their brightest.